MC is in the house. What's up, folks? My name is Justin Garcia, also known as Master Chim, and welcome to the Warrior Stream. I am here every Wednesday. Well, almost every Wednesday, I guess. Last week, I had to postpone it, because I was out and about on my way to vacation down in Florida. And I literally just got back less than an hour ago and just in time to sort of set this up and send out the links and whatnot. So appreciate you guys for joining. Who we got here? Johnny Groove, what's going on? As you guys are popping on, say what's up. Last week, I had to put the kibosh on the live show because we were traveling. I wasn't sure that I'd be able to have enough service, to be able to hold the live stream. And I hate those live streams that are choppy, that you can't hear the fucking guy and everything. So I decided to just make it this week. So who we got? Corey, what's up, my man? Good to see you. Jack Jack says vacation, say it ain't so. Oh man, they got me, Jack. They got me. It was a pretty good experience. It was good for everybody. Aaron, what's up, darling? Good to see you. It started off, let me break it down. So my thing on vacations, and I think I wrote about this in one of the emails, I'm somebody who does not believe in escaping their reality for reprieve, to sort of give them a little bit of some extra bandwidth to go and endure a terrible life all over again, right? Not that is not something that can be done in the short term. Like sometimes we got to suck it up and just grind away to sort of get to that next chapter of where we're at. But we don't want to sort of accept a life that just bleeds us of energy, just because every so often we can escape from that life and discover a little bit of sanity, right? So I don't believe in vacations as an escape. Jamie, what's up, my man? Good to see you. So that's one thing, and like I love my life. To me, my wife certainly doesn't like hearing this, but I say every day for me is a vacation. I get to be around the people I care about, deal with the people I care about, do the things that I like to do. I get to be creative and all these different things. So I don't really have a day-to-day life that I need a break from necessarily. Now, all that being said, that's not the case with everybody that's connected to me, obviously. So as much as I want to keep, let's say, my kids, my homeschooled kids, away from, so many of the influences of environments that they're not yet fully developed to be able to repel and withstand, I also understand the need for creating those experiences, letting them do new things, build new connections with new tools that they have, meeting new people, etc. Right. So there is just a value to doing something different for different sake. Right. So there's an argument for that. Another thing is, and maybe this falls under that, or the thing that I just described, maybe it falls under that umbrella, but just going and exploring and having experiences that are not necessarily ever going to be a day-to-day thing, or an everyday thing, I should say. Taking a trip to, I'm going to make something up, Rio. Like I've been to Rio before, right? I went to Rio twice. Like going to the beach in Rio, going to the rainforest in Rio, seeing some of the, the what is it called? The pao de azuca, the sugar loaf, like all these different things that are in Rio. Like you don't want to live there so you could do that every day. That kind of defeats the purpose of just going and exploring those things and having those experiences. So there's something to be said for just one-off going and discovering some new things. So I am not universally opposed to vacations, but what is it that people do with vacations every day? They schedule them as an escape from a life that they don't want. And it becomes, I'm going to suffer for 50 weeks out of the year because 2 weeks I get to go and do something different. And that is what I never want to incentivize. So the last time I took my family on a vacation was, I think, 3 years ago, maybe. I think it was 3 years ago. We went to Hilton Head Island down in South Carolina, had a great time. So this was different, right? So let's some interesting shit happened, right? It's probably, if you guys saw the email, there's one thing in particular that I can't wait to share with you guys. But just to let me set the backdrop of how I operate, right? So my grandmother just turned 99, right? And she is awesome. 99. My grandfather passed a couple of years ago. They were married over 75 years. She just turned 99. Does not eat vegetables, does not eat fruit. Um, so you could throw that shit out the window. Like, despises vegetables, despises fruit. Um, she is somebody who I remember, as a child, in the 80s, she was into the aerobics craze. So she was one of those ladies that was going to the gym with the Jane Fonda looking outfits and doing the steps and all those different things. So she was always active, right? She had an interesting life. She, I don't want to make this thing about, my grandmother and put all her shit on blast, but there's, she's gone through some stuff like most people have. 99 years. You'd imagine there'd be some valleys. It's not all peaks, right? But she is she has more energy than I do still, and it's just incredible to see. So number one, we wanted to go down there and be able to be there for her 99th. Another thing is, I have a good cousin of mine who I'm very close with. Recently, I'm very close with, to be honest, who has a vacation home down there. And he was like, hey, like, you guys ever want to come down? You should come down. And I'll be honest, I'm not somebody that I don't accept favors easily from people, and it's not that I don't, have gratitude for the favors that people offer to me. But I really never want to be looked at as somebody who's looking to take advantage. And so I'm very, cautious and hesitant, reluctant even to accept any favors from anybody. But my cousin, as solid as they come, has been offering me to stay at his house down in the beach in Florida. I'm looking at Airbnbs to be able to make my grandmother's party, and I realize that where she is in Florida is right next to where my cousin's place is. So it's like, well, this is great. This is two birds with one stone. I get to, my family, my grandmother, she loves my kids. She loves seeing the kids. I wanted to make that happen. Not that she doesn't, mind seeing me, but, like her seeing my kids and making the trip down, I knew that would be special to her. So I wanted to do that for her. I saw that my cousin's place is right there. So I called him. He was over the moon to be able to help me out and be very generous by offering his place. Which was an incredible place across the beach, like across the street from the beach, and great pool and the place where his condo is. And it was just an incredible experience. So we got to do a bunch of things that we obviously don't normally do. And I got to sort of check some tribal boxes, in the process. So the first couple days we're there. It is, you think that they're having another hurricane or something. Super windy, winds like over 50 miles an hour, dark skies, not, beach weather. But one of the things I love about my family and my kids, not one complaint. We wound up every morning going to the facility where my cousin's condo is. They have a very impressive gym in the facility there. So every morning my boys and I were going and getting a lift in. We were still jumping in the beach. Not in the beach, in the pool, the huge pool that this place has. Nobody was going in it because of the weather. We didn't give a shit, right? So we were in the pool having a good time, but just no complaints, right? So, I'm always talking about gratitude and not allowing entitlement to sort of design your energy and design your state. And for me, it's a vote of confidence that, when pushed up against a little bit of adversity, if you want to call it that, on vacation and there's no sun in the sky, my kids didn't miss a beat. We wound up having a great time, even so. So fast forward now to what is Johnny Groove says. John Wiley, what's up, brother man? Johnny says, I vacationed for my wife. I prefer only a day or two. Like, yeah, I think we got a lot of overlap where that's concerned, But fast forward to I think it was today's Wednesday, so I think it might have been Monday. We're on the beach. This is good, people. This is good. I think that and understand too. I'm telling this story because I think that there's zero liability that I'm going to expose myself to by sharing this story. Right? Could have been a lot worse. Anyway, let me get into it. So we're at the beach on Monday, right? Hollywood, Florida is where we're at, and a beautiful beach. The weather was finally an ideal weather day, and we're hanging out. And the kids are playing. My youngest two are in the water, and the waves were ridiculous. So it's not like there was any swimming going on. It was literally like just a workout, like go and fight the waves for as long as you want. And that's what they were doing. They're having a great time doing it. But they're, playing with the waves. And my oldest two at this point were taking a break. They were sitting on some beach chairs, reading, listening to something. I myself, my wife was reading a book, and I was laying down on a blanket that we had on the sand. My wife nudges me, and she's like, "Babe," and I'm like, "What?" I'm relaxing. Like, what? And she's like, "Babe, I don't like the way this guy's looking at the kids." So, as a father, it's like you hear that, and it's like you're in the murder mode immediately. So I immediately pop up, and sure as shit, you cannot make this up. Hindsight, I could have recorded more. I could have taken pictures. I could have done a lot more, but that's not the band. That's not the gear that was activated. When this happened. So I look up, and there's a guy. I probably say mid to late 50s, sitting in a catcher's position, like kneeling in a catcher's position, holding his phone up. Right. So he's got his phone up. And my two kids are the only ones that are in the water, that are in that whole vicinity. Because the waves rather are so aggressive, there's really next to nobody along this whole span of beach. There's people on the beach sporadically. It wasn't a crowded day by any means, but there's nobody in the water. This guy's lined up right in front of my kids. So I immediately jump up and I walk behind him as if I was somebody walking down the beach. And when I do that, I see him look over his shoulder like he's tracking who's behind him, right? And so when he goes to look, I look forward as if I'm just walking past him. He hadn't seen me spring up from my blanket and walk to where I was behind him. So as soon as he looks forward again, I sprint so that I could see his phone screen before he moves his phone. Sure as shit, my two kids are on the screen of his phone. I immediately grab his phone out of his hand, and I look at him, and I go, "Are you just fucking recording my kids?" And I don't know what he was gonna say, but he tried to say something. But he just moved in a way. I don't know. I'm gonna make an excuse because I'm on video right now. Let's just say that he triggered me, made me fear for my life. And when he went to speak, I throat punched him, right? So I hit this dude in the throat. And, there are ways to hit somebody in the throat, ways to hit somebody, period. But hitting somebody in the throat, and this is just like me just fucking being irresponsible with some violence training right now for your guys' benefit, right? There's not a million people watching, so I don't think I'll have any lawyers or anything calling me. But when you're hitting somebody, you could hit them to have an effect. You could hit them to do damage. You could hit them to leave a mark. You could hit them to make it look big to observers. You could hit them, to just make them submissive, like the dog whisperer, calm and submissive, right? It's a lot of ways you get somebody. When you hit somebody in the throat, one of the good things about hitting somebody in the throat is that you don't leave a bruise, right? So you hit him, and then whether you hit him or not is debatable because he really has no proof. But he got a good pop in the throat, right? And at that point, I see a couple of people now after I hit him. He falls back. He's on his back in the sand. And he's dressed like regular clothes on. It's not like he was a beach goer or anything, which makes it even more creepy. And, I'm looking at this guy, and I don't know how liberal I could be describing this, but I think I'll leave enough that you guys will understand my point. At the core of my very soul, I knew this guy was a pedophile. He had that look, he had that demeanor, he had those mannerisms, and all of the things that I've described layered on top of that, I knew that this guy was a pedophile. I've shared my opinions of what should happen to pedophiles before, and I think all pedophiles should be put to death. It doesn't mean that I was going to murder a pedophile on the beach on vacation, right? I'm not interested in murdering anybody, right? Let me say that on the record. I don't. Everybody should call the police, blah, blah, blah. Well, after I popped this dude on the throat and he falls back, I had a bunch of people now starting to cause a commotion, because to a casual observer, it looks like some fucking silverback gorilla is just assaulting some old guy on the beach. I get it, right? So realizing, the snapshot of what's happening, I get him up and I see a lifeguard stand not too far away, maybe 50 yards away. I get him up. I tell him to get up and I tell him to walk, right? So I walk him like a fucking prison guard, right? I'm walking him. I tell him to walk to the fucking guard stand. I have his phone and he's just walking. He doesn't know what's what. We get there. He's trying to speak to me in Spanish. My last name's Garcia. I don't speak Spanish though. My mother's Irish Italian. Like, we didn't grow up speaking Spanish. I'm getting every third or fourth word he's fucking saying. But I just told him to shut the fuck up, right? So we get to the guard stand. There's two lifeguards. And there was one like beach security. All of these guys are 20 to 25 years old, right? The security guard comes down, and like, I can understand they have no fucking idea what is going on. They see this, and now I'm walking the guy over. They are fucking baffled. So I get there and I look at the security guard and I go, here's this guy's phone. I just saw him recording my kids. I just saw my kids on his phone. I think he was recording them. I'm on vacation. I really don't want to kill this man right now on the beach and ruin my vacation. Can you handle him? Right? And he goes, and I said, I don't know. I think he's speaking Spanish. I don't fucking speak his language. So can you handle this? So the guy's like, yes. Right? So I just give him the thing. I walk away. Now, you got to understand, at this point, I'll be honest. There are very few things that make me emotional. My kids are on that short list of that, which is fucking normal, right? To be expected. So I was in a controlled state, but a very, very escalated controlled state. So what I needed to do was, and this is second step strategies. If you guys have ever seen my program of that name, you understand the process. It's like, how do I get control of the second, third order effect of my actions? So I did that. I walked away. I knew I needed to get my energy down a little bit. So I'm sitting there and I see them talk to him. I see them walk him off the beach. They start walking back. I walk over. Now, why am I walking over? Not because I'm interested, what happened? What did he say? Like, I don't give a fuck about any of that. I'm really just surveying the energy of the situation. Like, a cop's going to show up in 5 minutes from now, like whatever the case is. So the guy comes over to me, the security guy. And I said, so was everything resolved? And he goes, yes, we threw him off the beach, told him not to come back. And I said, oh, okay. I said, well, what was his story? And he said that the guy told them that he works in the area. He came and wanted to show his daughter. He was on a video call, he said, and he wanted to show the daughter the beach that he was at, how beautiful it was today. And then the security guard asked me, and this is how I could tell there's a little bit of doubt in his mind of what exactly transpired. He said, so did you actually see your kids? And I said, listen, not only did I see my kids on his phone, but I made sure that I snuck around him when my wife notified me that he was looking and pointing his phone at my kids for an unusual amount of time, an inappropriate amount of time. Even with that information, I still made sure that I snuck up behind him, looked over his phone, and saw my kids there. Not only did I see my kids on his phone, but he was holding his phone in portrait mode, which meant if he's showing the beach, it's one thing to have this huge landscaped view of the beach and there's two kids running around in like the bottom corner of it. No, it was portrait mode, and he captured both of my kids in that very slim aspect ratioed shot. So I said, not only did I see my kids, I gave all the information. I said, but, and I figured it was safe to admit this to them at this point, since the guy had already left. I said, but, well, think of it this way. This guy doesn't know me. He doesn't speak the language. So I am somebody who went up to him, grabbed his phone, punched him in the throat, walked him over to security guard, and left him there. Why did that guy leave so easily? Why didn't he demand that the cops be called? Why didn't he demand that something be done to me? And I think at that point, the security kid, was like, oh, yeah, that kind of makes sense. So what winds up happening is I get back from talking to them. There's no cops. I'm not worried about that anymore. Because I want to know, like, listen, we got to pack up and get the fuck out of here. Wouldn't be the first time, right? My wife then shares with me that when this whole thing was going down, there was a couple that was like, adamantly, like, why is that guy picking on him? Why'd that guy? I saw him hit him, and it's like that. So then my wife walked over to them. She tells me and says, he was recording my 2 young children. That's my husband. At which point, like, everybody within earshot of that wanted to string the guy up, so that's one of those things. Everybody was on point. So it was an interesting experience. Obviously the after action of that whole thing was I sit the kids down and, and I explain to them, like, we've had talks about, these topics before, and they've had a fair degree of training and different ways to conduct themselves in different situations. But this was real. They saw daddy punch some guy in the throat, so it was another level of realism. So it was a great opportunity to have them make that association. It's like, listen, this isn't just shit we talk about. Like, we're not playing fucking Dungeons and Drag Queens, we're talking about these things. This is real world. This is real life shit. This isn't woke people are crazy and we got to make sure that, like, no, this is real world. So I think it was valuable for them in that sense. Let's see what's going on here. Jeremiah Johnson, what's up, brother, man? Good to see you. All right. Says, hard to be a fucktard loser when everyone has tribe and gratitude in their heart. You always wake up and everything is more meaningful because it's right on. Absolutely right. Tracking the right shit. All right. He says, death is coming for that dude. And I'll be honest, my cousin, I told my cousin who was in law enforcement, for many years. And it was actually interesting because his take on it was a little bit more educated, I would say. Maybe educated, a little bit more institutionalized, maybe a cross between those two words. But his whole thing was, oh, you should have detained him. You should have had the cops there, and not that he's not wrong, and he said, that guy's going to wind up doing it, to somebody else, and my mindset is, okay, if I detain him now, I'm on vacation, right? I don't go on vacation a lot. And I'm sitting here detaining a guy. I already know there is nothing that he could be arrested for. Even if he had a video that had my kids on it, he's not going to be arrested for that, right? It's a public area. He could say, I was just taking a picture of the beach, and that I already understand that's the escalated version of that line of action, right? It's him saying, I didn't do anything, and the cops saying we have no proof. So now it reduces it to, but you did punch him in the throat, right? So that's the one thing that they could absolutely. So there's a point where I don't necessarily want the police there. It's like there's nothing that they're going to add in terms of value here, from my experience, for the experience of my family at that point. Now, is the guy going to do it the next day? I would say, to that, probably that's what they do, right? They can't help themselves. It's a compulsion. You see how just over the top, like how bold this guy was, that he was willing to do this in a way that he swore that there wasn't going to be a consequence, right? I remember, and I wrote this in my book in TRIBALNOMICS, that when I was locked up as a teenager, I remember sitting in a jail cell and telling myself, or just allowing myself to mentally marinate on the fact that there's nothing that I did that I thought would have me wind up here. Like, that wasn't a connection in my head, and how I had to sort of install protocols so I could sort of not be my own worst enemy as a result of that. Well, similarly, this guy, he was sitting there recording my kids, thinking there was going to be absolutely no consequence. I know plenty of people, and maybe some of you guys watching right now, that you catch somebody doing that. Like maybe, maybe you're just acting first, thinking later. Listen, I wouldn't be the first one to blame you. I wouldn't blame you at all. But there would be a consequence now as a result of that, and I had to ask myself, what am I willing, in the moment, what am I willing to invest in terms of consequence to have him experience a consequence? Like he's not going to be swallowing easily for the next couple of days. So that might affect his nightlife. But aside from that, it's like, am I going to go start hunting pedophiles now? Is it just this guy? Like, I understand the limitations of what I could do in that particular moment. And I'm not willing to sacrifice the entire experience of my family just to maximize what that potential is, Little Goose, what's up, my man? Good to see you. Full feeder mode was right. Jeremiah Johnson. So Jared says, should have walked that waist over to one of the assassins you raised and had to take turns choking them out. It's funny because the guy, let me not be too controversial here. That should be a t-shirt, right? Let me not be too controversial here. He was, let's just say, an older, very effeminate man, right? Let's just leave it at that. And I know that my 3 sons, each one of them, would have been able to murder this guy if that was what needed to happen. Not that I would have told them to do that. Not that I think that's the right thing to do, blah, blah, blah. But it is one of those things where, at the end of it, I remember my youngest son going, like, that was really cool. And I'm like, what? He goes, I never saw you hit somebody without gloves on, right? Which is a pretty cool observation. Because number one, it suggests that he's seen me hit a bunch of people with gloves on, right? But without gloves was an interesting distinction. But it got real for them, and they understand, I think a little bit more what's out there and what a man's got to be ready and capable of doing in a moment's notice. Which was interesting. This could have gone so much differently. The joke, obviously, I make with my wife afterward is, like, leave it to me. Like, you think everybody comes and has to punch a pedo in the throat every time they're on vacation? It's just I find a way of making these days more interesting. Right, Jesse, what's up, brother man? Good to see you. Judge Cone, what's going on? Miguel, what's up, my man? Good to see you. Michael, what's up? Michael says, as a sworn lawman, I agree with your solution, brother. Right on. Jeremiah Johnson says, I know some cops. Let me tell you about me engaging a pedophile who was touching himself while watching a ballet performance my youngest was in. Oh, my God. I think you're looking at this all wrong. The universe was fucking hard to have you. Was fucking hard to have you intervene and do what you're supposed to do, and you missed the rep. The universe put the hit out on the guy. Is that what you're saying? And I didn't answer the call. Oh man, it's funny. I remember a couple years ago. You guys, I'm sure you saw online. There was some lady that was making a case that, pedophiles, like it's a sexual orientation, right? Did my camera just change? Whatever. It's a sexual orientation. And her point was, this is something that, just like homosexuality, heterosexuality, it's something that's ingrained in their identity. It's not a choice. It's just a preference. They would choose to not be that if they could, but they can't. And everybody was like, oh, this is the normalization of pedophilia. And my whole thing was, it's like, I don't look at it that way. I look at it like, right. There's no fixing them, right? There's no helping them. That's right. Like, you remember all those guys, those religious guys that had the whole pray the gay away, movement It's like, well, we could just have them lift weights, eat steak, and fucking like and look at tits or something. I don't know what the plan was, but we could somehow just do something, and somebody's not going to be gay. It's like, all right, good luck with that. Well, it's just as futile to do this with a pedo. And this lady was saying that she was basically giving a scientific, proof of that, of that premise. And I had always thought that from the beginning, this is their sexual identity, sexuality and its identity falls on the spectrum. Well, only a part of that spectrum is actually functional, in propagating a species. Only part of that spectrum is functional in existing, in a society, in a mixed society. Like there's a certain point where, and I wasn't in the military, but they had the I don't know what the thing is now, but they had the don't ask, don't tell policy, back in the day, where if you were a homo, you just kept that to yourself. And it's like, yeah, that makes sense to me. Because what the fuck, that's just going to complicate stuff. And the counter to that, the argument is, well, you're not allowing people to represent themselves fully, and they're making this commitment, and we should respect who they are if we're asking them to give their lives. It's like, well, no. Like, no. It's like, okay, if you're a gay guy, right? If you're a homo who's going to be in the military, it's like we're asking you two things: to potentially give your life, your country, and to keep that gay shit to yourself. Like it's just two things. I think the second one's so much easier than the first one. Like if you could donate, potentially your life to the cause, right? Potential, and I have the utmost respect for that, by the way. Like, let's not get that shit twisted. I tried to get in the military. I couldn't because of my record. Anyway, I have the utmost respect for people who are in the military, but it's so much easier to say, and just keep that gay shit to yourself. Don't ask, don't tell. We're not going to ask you nothing. You don't tell us nothing. So they undo that. Now you have men dressed as women. You have with social media now. Like I could go down that road. We're not going to talk about that the whole time, but you guys get what I'm saying. I keep that shit to yourself. But anyway, you look at the pedophiles. My whole thing is, anybody that abuses a child because they're pedophiles. Not that fucking other reasons would change it, but specific to what we're talking about. Anybody who has a sexual identity whereby they abuse children in order to gratify themselves sexually, they should be killed. And a counter to that, and I remember when I made an episode on one of my old podcasts about this years ago, I got pushback from somebody saying, yeah, but there are a lot of pedophiles who don't act on it. To which my fucking response is, then why the fuck do we know they're pedophiles? Because you motherfuckers want to tell them it's okay to talk about that shit. My whole thing is like, no, keep that shit to yourself. Pedophiles are people who sexually abuse children. If you're attracted to children, listen, keep that shit to yourself. If we catch you doing it, you're fucking done. Like that, it's a very simple fucking way to go about it, right? Very simple way to fucking deal with it, right? Jeff, my man Jeff, says, I wish you would have heard this story a couple of months ago. Some guy was videoing my granddaughter, and I just kind of got in the way and wished her away. I like you way better. Well, Jeff, I'll tell you right now, next time you call me when you see that shit. Because up in PA, we can get away with some shit. On the beach in Florida, I already had a bunch of old people yelling at me to leave the guy alone. Fucking A. What else? Jamie writes, I don't want to know the kind of kink my straight friends are into. Out of fear, I'll lose respect. Forget about the queer kink. Absolutely right. And that is absolutely the point. I remember years ago, you guys probably heard this, they did some study, and this was like the more liberals, like trying to catch the conservatives red-handed, like when they came out with this study that showed like all adult toys disproportionately went to conservative red state areas, and they were like, see, they're all full of shit, they're all hypocrites. And it's like, no, they're keeping that shit to themselves. Listen, if you and your wife at night when you're in your fucking bedroom throw on fucking gimp suits and beat each other with fucking whipped cream and fucking eggs, like whatever you're in, and then go to church on Sunday in suits and dresses and yes sir, good morning, this, that, I got no fucking problem with that. Do you be all about who you are, so long as it is not, number one, affecting anybody else in the form of removing their ability to be who they are, but also don't try and normalize deviant behavior. You have to like there is a level of decorum that we all have, right? Like guys are pretty vulgar, right? You can get guys together and we'll talk about some vulgar stuff. It's like, oh man, I took this shit this morning and let me tell you, it was, and like his boys will sit there and go, yeah, no, get out of here. I fucking hate when that happens. And like, it is completely normal in that environment. And all of us guys do it, right? We talk about vulgar things like that. But all of us who talk about those vulgar things also know this is not something that should be spoken about in front of the women, the children, strangers, the public. Like, no, I don't want to live in a society where the whole fucking, society acts like we're in a locker room, like a bunch of degenerates. Like there is a level of what's appropriate. You remember the guy that recorded Donald Trump talking about grab him in the pussy. Can I say that? Am I going to get fucking banned from YouTube again? You know what I'm talking about. And everybody was like, oh, how vulgar. It's like, what? You have no idea what guys talk about. We're talking about women when we're by ourselves and together. And like, you have no idea. There's like, this is locker room talk. It's like, yeah, it is. But let's just not say, well, he didn't mean it like that. Like, no, he meant it like that because we're talking shit. All guys talk shit when we're by ourselves and we're away from all of those people who we have alliances with that we don't want that side of us affecting. That's what it's all about, right? I've been married over 20 years. I told my wife, if I ever hear a fart, we're getting divorced. We're still married 20 years, right? Like, there are some things that, listen, you keep that shit to yourself. So when we normalize pedophilia, like you got to understand what that means, what that implies. We're saying that this is an acceptable behavior. We're suggesting somehow that a large segment of society partakes in this, right? So if you guys understand distribution, the normal curve, the bulk of the people are in a couple of standard deviations from the middle of the spectrum of behavior. Like, you have homosexuality, you have pedophilia, you have like fucking animals. What's that? A bestiality. You got all these weird fucking alities and and stuff on the fringes of deviance in that curve. In order to enjoy the society we have to keep those deviant behaviors deviant. We can't allow them to form like some fucking pedo union, right? Where like now they have rights, they're together. Like that's not how it happens. A similar, an analogous situation. We look at people that come from like third world countries, like sociologists would call the types of the countries I'm referring to like shitholes, right? So shithole countries. And they come to America, a land of opportunity, all the things that America has are here, obviously. This is why people come here. But then when they come here, they want to act like it's still the country they just came from. Number one, if there is no pressure to assimilate, I understand why they do it because it's what they know. But we also know that if everybody act like it was that country, this country would be like that country, not vice versa. But they don't understand that when they come here, and there's no pressure here to make them understand that. Well, if somebody is acting in a way that is deviant, but everybody goes out of their way to not pressure them into feeling like they're deviant, why should they change? What's the incentive to change? And how do you not see that that is going to incentivize mobilizing people who are maybe on the fence? You know, some people don't want to admit it, but I'll give an example of that last point I just made. Some people don't want to accept this, but there are people who do not rape women because it's illegal and they don't want to get arrested and go to jail. Like, listen, I consider myself to be a man of action, right? Princess Bride reference. Like, I know what's what. I've been around the block. This ain't my first rodeo. Any other fucking euphemism I could apply to the situation right now. I know, you know, that there are people who the laws and the consequences are the only things stopping them from doing the things that they want to do. Right? Like, I know some people who are so committed to being regulated by rules and laws that they could be in the middle of a ghost town in the middle of the night with nobody in sight. There'll be a red light and they will sit there and wait for that red light. Nope, it's illegal to run a red light. The purpose of a red light, obviously, is to manage traffic. It's to make sure that people aren't banging into each other. It's to keep everything organized, you know, city design, flow, all that stuff. Being in the middle of nowhere, one fucking swinging like little traffic light, 3 o'clock in the morning, there's nobody there and it's red. Like, the fucking thing has no purpose. It has no use. So then the counter is, yeah, but if there was a cop there, you wouldn't do it. Right. But it doesn't mean I believe in the law anymore. It doesn't believe that I think everybody should. It's that I don't want the consequence of having a cop see me run a red light, right? It's all about the consequences or whatever. So there are going to be consequences for people that incentivize and, on the other side, disincentivize behaviors. As soon as we stop disincentivizing things like pedophilia, like, let's start with that, like, what the fuck do you think the consequence is going to be of that? What's the consequence? A guy fucking recording my kids on the fucking beach. Yeah, he got fucking throat punched. But why is he doing that? He's pushing 60, the guy. Why is he so bold doing that? Because he's never experienced a consequence that would disincentivize him from doing it. Right? And I got a throat punch out of him. But, like, listen, if everybody was on board and they were like, you know what? We're not going to kill him, but we're going to affect his life a little bit right now. Like, I'd be like, all right, game on. This is what we're going to do. But people aren't about that life. No, the government will handle it. They'll do it. And then we just hope that what they're going to do is in line with what we want done. And by the time we realize it isn't, we're too powerless to do anything ourselves. What else going on? Jeremiah Johnson writes, gotta go back to work, do cop shit. Don't tell anyone what I said, or dude, just don't throw punch me for calling you a loser. You're the man MC. I won't. I'm just gonna choke your ass out. Jeff, I got a backhoe. I can dig a deep hole. Oh man, it's another benefit of PA. A lot of land out there. Red Brick Bandit, what's up? He says, although if they formed a union, they would have meetings. Put the problem all in one place and it's easier to solve. Yeah, our luck, they'd get a fucking private Facebook group and we'd never fucking be any wiser. They probably already have them, to be honest. But I get the point. All right, so what else? That was technically just a part of my vacation after action. I think that's it. Did I talk about anything else? Yeah, let's end it there. You know what? Like, I'm on like 2 hours sleep right now. I just drove from Florida. I was glad I got back in time to be able to get on and say what's up to you guys and share the story. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys are not getting my emails, the link is down in the description. You got to get the emails. You can go to masterchimletter.com and do it. There's a link down below. Just do that. It's easier. But get my morning emails. I got a bunch of stuff going on. I'll be here next week. Same time, same channel, all that stuff. I appreciate you guys. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.